Welcome to another M365.video SharePoint short. My name is David Warner. Today we're going to talk about getting started with column formatting. Now we're going to take a quick look at the Microsoft documentation, very well written, very worthwhile reading. And then we're going to dive right into a bunch of samples created by and contributed to by the SharePoint community. It's going to set you on the path of success. All you need to know how to do is copy and paste. It's going to be awesome. Let's take a look. If you've never had any exposure to column formatting, really the best place to get started is the documentation. Microsoft has done a fantastic job of outlining exactly what is column formatting, how you can get started, some of the features, ways in which you can use it. It's really a quick read, but it's very informative and it gives you examples. Right here at the very beginning, you can see an example of what these columns look like before you've applied any column formatting and what they look like after. So I really encourage, if you've not, take some time, read the documentation. Once you feel comfortable with understanding what column formatting can do for you, you might find it best just to jump in and apply some samples. Microsoft has done a great job of giving us a place where a number of samples already exist, and you can even submit your own samples once you've created some you feel are of value and might belong there. You'll find it here at the bottom of the opening section of the documentation. There's a link to the GitHub column formatting repository. I'm going to go ahead and open that in a new tab. And once that loads here, we can see it's got some of the documentation we already saw on the Microsoft site. And if we focus here on the column samples section, click on there, we'll see that there's a number of samples that have already been contributed that we can use. The first example we're going to look at is called text conditional format. You can find this down here. It's in alphabetical order, so we'll just go ahead and click on it. And you can see what it does is it just changes the look of your content. Now this is a single column of data, single line of text, and it just changes the background color and adds an icon based on the content that exists in this single column. To apply this sample, we simply look for the JSON file that defines the column formatting and what it does. Now all samples in this repo have the exact same format. They all include a README, a screenshot, and a JSON file. Some samples have more than one JSON file. In this case, there's only one. To use it, we just simply click on that JSON file, and I find it best to click the raw button. So all we need to do is select all, copy and paste into our field once we move over to there. One thing to note though is that this is a single column formatting enhancement. So you can see here it's got a variable called current field. So it really doesn't matter that our sample may include a field name or a column name that's different than this sample was built for, because it's not referencing any other columns. So all we need to do is select all and copy, and then we want to go to our list. You can see that this list has the same data that the sample did. We've got a severity column here, we've got the same data, and now all we need to do is apply our column formatting JSON we had copied from GitHub. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. If it's a site column that exists at the site collection level, we could go into site settings, find the site column, and apply it there. If you want to scope it to just an individual list, you can edit the site column in the list, and that's how we're going to do that here. Now I've already got the list settings open here in another tab, so we're going to come into the list settings, locate the severity column right here, down here at the bottom, and we're going to go ahead and open its properties. Once that opens and we scroll to the bottom of the properties, we see there's a section called column formatting. And this is simply all there is to it. You just click into the text box, paste the column formatting JSON to provide the enhancement, and click OK. Now while that's updating, we'll go back to our first column for the list, or our first tab for the list. We'll hit refresh, and we can see that the formatting has already been applied pretty much instantaneously. It's very, very cool, very fast. Now, that's not the only way to apply it. There's actually a much easier way to apply it while you're here looking at the list. If you click on the header, the column header of the column that you want to apply the formatting to, come down to column settings and select format this column, a panel flies out from the right here called format column. And we see it too includes a text box, already including the JSON that we had included on the list settings page. So it's a much easier, more efficient way to apply it. You can make changes, hit preview or save, and you can see the update immediately while you're actually on the list. It's a much more efficient, much more cool way. That's how we're going to use it for the rest of the demos in this video. Our first example provided a great way for us to see how column formatting can change the look and feel of a single column. Our next example is going to step it up a notch. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to perform a mathematical calculation, and we're going to include data in another column for the same row to assist in that calculation. The example we're going to use today to see that is called number trending icon. So we'll go ahead and go into that. Now this is one of those examples that happens to have more than one sample in it. We can see there's a couple of JSON files because there's a couple of ways that this can be applied. The first way is showing an icon, right? Showing an up or a down icon. This trending column has formatting applied to it that is taking into account another column that's not visible here in this sample. The next sample, though, actually shows both. So we see there's a before and there's an after. Now the after is where the conditional formatting has been applied. What it's doing, though, is it's taking into account part of that mathematical equation, the before property. So we see here 55 is more than 50, so we've got an up arrow in green, and we show the difference. We can see that not only is it able to take into account values of other content in the same row, but in other columns, it can also provide a calculation based on that content. To apply this example, we'll go ahead and use the number trending icon with difference JSON. So all we need to do is click on the JSON, takes us to the same place as all the other ones, and we'll go ahead and click on raw, makes it easy to select all and copy. Now one thing to note before we do, this uses the actual name of the columns. So here we see it's looking for an after column and a before column. If you're using column names that are not the same, then you'll want to adjust the column formatting JSON based on the column names that you're using. For my sample, I'm using the same names before and after, so all I need to do is select all and copy. When we go to the list, you see I've got an example with the exact same values that were in the GitHub example. So I'll go ahead and click on the after column header, go to column settings and click on format this column. It brings up the panel. It's empty, so all we need to do is click into it and paste. Now I could click save if I know, for example, that it's going to work perfectly. In this case I do, because it's already been proven out in the example in the GitHub, but I just want to preview it. I don't want to apply it. Maybe I'm making changes and I don't want to save them unless I know it's working perfectly. You click preview and we can see it was instantaneously applied. The arrows show up appropriately, the values show up, and if I hit cancel, we see it goes away. But we want to go ahead and apply it. So that is a quick way to just double check and test. So I'll go back in, I'll paste, I'll hit save this time, and we'll go ahead and close that panel, and we see that it's working perfectly. If I were to add a new value, we'll just go ahead and call it trending up. We'll put in a 0 and we'll put in 55, and we should see an up arrow and we should see a change of 55 next to it. And we do perfectly, and it occurs immediately. Very cool, very easy, really neat. Now this last sample is a little bit of a mixture of what we saw in the first two samples. It is only going to use a single column like we saw in the first example, but instead of just simply manipulating the data based on the content that's in the column, it's actually going to be a little more complex. It's going to connect out to another service, in this case Twitter, and using the content in the column, which will be the Twitter profile name, it's going to make a request to Twitter for the profile picture. We can see how to do that here in the generic Twitter pic example. Now if we scroll down, we see what's happening is it's actually pulling in the picture from Twitter, which is very cool because if that picture gets updated later, it automatically will be included in this request. We're not storing the picture in SharePoint. It's not being included in a library anywhere in SharePoint. It's making a request out to Twitter at the time of this list being loaded. And then it also creates an href or a hyperlink to the Twitter profile and displays the Twitter profile name on hover. As we have with all our other samples, we just simply need to go into the JSON file to apply this example. So we'll go ahead and click on the raw. Now this example uses the current field variable like we saw in the first example, so it really doesn't matter that we take notice of whether or not our column is named the same that's in this example, because it's meant for only a single column. So we can be confident that if we just select all and copy, we'll be able to use it as is. I've already got a list set up for us to use. Here it's called Twitter pic, and you can see there's a column that says Twitter profile name. It includes my Twitter handle and SharePoint. Now we'll go ahead and edit the column, format this column. The panel pops out. We just simply need to paste it in and hit save. And we can see that instantaneously, I'll close the panel here, see that instantaneously it shows our Twitter profile. Now again, this is very cool because it's not actually storing my profile picture anywhere in SharePoint. It's pulling it live from Twitter. So if I, or SharePoint in this case, were to go out and change the profile picture, the next time this list loads, we'll see that new picture. And it is very quick. So if we were to go in and add a new record here, we'll go ahead and enter Chris Kent. His profile is the Chris Kent. we're going to see that as soon as I hit save, it's going to show it immediately. And if I hover over each one of these, we can see that it shows the profile name for Twitter. And if I click on it, it opens up that Twitter profile in a new tab. Very cool. It's almost like an API-like interface. Very, very cool, very powerful, and didn't really require a lot of effort. Hopefully the value you've gotten here from this video is to see how you can jump right in and get started using column formatting by using existing samples, reading the documentation. In the next couple videos, we'll see how we can use the web part from Chris Kent, and we'll see how you can start from scratch in VS Code, get some curly braces written, use some IntelliSense. It's going to be really cool. Hope you enjoy.